You ever feel like this? Just sitting alone in the dark? Your feelings are real, kind of heavy, and you get all silly to not have to feel the feeling that you're feeling. I remember going to see my counselor a few years ago, and she said, "Oh, Michael, the Holy Spirit and I were talking about you before you got here." And I said, "That sounds pretty good." And she said, "And we want you to know we think that you are brilliant and hilarious, and that is not what we're doing here." When I was in 6th grade, my dad pulled up. I was going to school in DeSoto, and he drove a very big Cadillac. And my dad never picked me up. And so I knew something was just a little bit off, and he didn't really talk much, and he's kind of choked up a little bit when he came to get me. And he told me my mom had breast cancer. I didn't know what that was, but it didn't sound particularly good. And I was like, "Is she going to die?" He's like, No, we don't think. I'm like, "Why'd you come to get me?" I'm like, "I can just take the bus home." He goes, No. You're going to go stay with your aunt and uncle for a week or so. And my entire life just all of a sudden shifted when I was in 6th grade, where we were kind of normal and life was pretty good. And then my mom had breast cancer on and off for the rest of her life. That's kind of heavy. It's kind of dark, isn't it? And I asked Eric to kill the lights tonight, because sometimes it's easier to not have to look in somebody's face when you're telling a hard story, like about that time when nobody was watching, and nobody was watching a lot. I stumbled into that box of pornography up in the attic, and that kind of got into my heart like a treble hook, looking at things you're not supposed to look at, trying to not feel the things that you don't want to feel. So you try and feel something else. And he took me to my aunt and uncle's house, and that's where my cousin was, my best friend on the whole planet. And so we got to hang out. And I suppose all of us might be wondering, what does this have to do with light in the darkness? But my aunt, who was sort of the matriarch at my cousin's house, and somebody I looked up to, passed away last week, and I got to speak at her funeral. I got to give her eulogy, and we haven't quite gotten to the light and the darkness yet, But see, when I was in 6th grade, my aunt was the light in the darkness for me. My cousin was the light in the darkness for me. My uncle, a safe place to be while my family was going through struggles. And my priest, Father Kim, he was a light in the darkness, and my big sisters were, right? And if we're not careful, gang, sometimes we don't really know what people mean when they say God. And I will just tell you, as somebody who's 56 years old, who's been walking with the Lord for the majority of my life, his very favorite disguise is a friend. And I was thinking about it, since we've shrunk these messages to 10 minutes, and I love that because I think it's perfect. You all need the time to spend together, to develop your friendships, to develop your hearing. It says, it's the glory of the Lord to hide something, but it's the glory of kings or his children to search it out together, right? But I thought about it, it's like, if I only had 10 minutes to lay something at your feet, the single most important thing that I could tell you, like, what in the name of righteousness would that be? And it would be this: God is nuts about you. And he sees you in whatever darkness you might find yourself in. He sees you, and he cares about you, and he sometimes wears disguises. One of his favorite disguises around me, you wouldn't believe it, is the mighty hummingbird. That's true. I asked a room full of adults, maybe 60 people a few weeks ago. I said, have any of you ever seen a hummingbird sitting in a tree? And not a hand went up. And I said, I see it all the time, because he's taught me how to look for it. God whispers. and his light is his friendship. See, he says in the Word, this book, that some of us are going to be tempted to believe might be boring or indecipherable or undiscoverable, and none of that's true. He says in this book that deep darkness will cover the earth. That's absolutely been my experience. But the glory of the Lord will rise upon you, and kings will come to the brightness of your shining. And one of the best ways I've ever discovered to feel that light deep inside is to just chew on a little passage, just crawl into it, like trust in the Lord with all of your heart. And don't lean on your own understanding. Acknowledge him in all your ways, and he will direct your path. My daughter, when she was just a wee bitty little girl, came running into the house. Her name is Tess. She's in England right now, in college. She came running into my house. And she goes, Daddy, 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 Selena's so mean. And she jumped up into my arms. And she just wailed and cried. And I just held her like this. And she wailed and she cried. And then she goes, and she got up and she ran outside and she went off to play and she felt so much better. And God's favorite disguise in that instance was a father who loves his daughter with comfort and closeness and holding. So when you pick up this little book and you go, I don't know how to do that, I want to remind you that every single one in this room are disciples, and that means learners. Now, most of you are still in 6th grade. Not that many of you have graduated yet. And as learners, you open the book up and don't start here. Start here. And you say, Holy Spirit, I'm not that tall and I'm not that smart. I'm going to need some help here. Would you please help me to understand this book? Now remind me, because we live in a land of forgetfulness, gang. Remind me when you're actually answering that prayer. Now, you wouldn't believe me if I didn't show you, so I'll show you. It says right here, I was walking out of Starbucks this afternoon, and this says, Impossible Breakfast Sandwich, David. My name's not David, but that's what this says. And then it says this time. It says 8:32. I've been traveling with God for a minute. Probably be faster if I do it here. Romans 8:32 is what I heard in my heart. He who didn't spare even his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? Gang, if you don't understand something, I promise you, you can ask him and keep asking him, and you're never going to bum him out. He will whisper truth to you. He will speak through nature. He will speak through signs. He will speak through friends. He will speak through song lyrics. But we have to learn, like all good detectives do, how to find the signs for what it is that he might be speaking to us. We got to get our little magnifying glasses out. We've got to tune our ears, right? Because his word is a lamp unto my feet and a light to my path. Means every question you've got, all of them, are hiding in this book, waiting for you to be drawn in. Don't for 1 second, please, no matter what you do, believe that this book's boring. This book is living and active and sharper than any two-edged sword. And the greatest adventures of your life come when you come into this book and you ask it one question. Before we go to small group time, let's think about this. If my thesis is right, and it is, God knows you way better than you do. And about 15 years ago, there was a study that was done. And in that study, they said if you can only do one thing, just one, to help everyone at any point in their Christian walk to become more spiritually mature, which they defined as loving God and loving people, do you know what it would be? They interviewed 100,000 different people in 1,000 different churches. It would be to study the scriptures for meaning and purpose in their life. So when you find yourself in darkness, invite God in this book to read you as you meditate, as you consider, as you imagine, by inviting the Holy Spirit to help you. He is described in this book as an ever-present help in time of need. And I don't know about you, but I could use that ever-present help. We love you. Go make friends. Go talk. And go hear God for yourselves, okay? Thanks for listening.